If you're anything like me, you love watching films. And I have often wondered, are we in the golden age of cinema with the films that we've seen coming out now? We've had some brilliant films, we've had a lot of big films, and we've also had a rise of a lot of independent films. Are we in or entering the golden age of films? Or as most film critics say, are we well beyond the golden age of films and they were all of these classic old films? I kind of want to answer that, but I feel like I can't answer it unless I've seen what people claim to be the golden age of cinema. So I have been, for many reasons, watching old films. The main reason is because I'm studying to be a filmmaker, and there is no better way to study film than to watch the evolution of film and study how it began and how it's evolved, and that starts by watching old films and watching as many of them as you can. I'm not going to complain if I'm told to watch films and call it research, so I'm very happy in this position. But it has been so overwhelming to find what old films to watch, what are considered classics, what is worth my time, what is good. So I decided I will go through all of that overwhelm for you, and then I will tell you which ones I think are good. Were old films better? I don't know. I will watch these films so that you don't have to, but I think that some of them you definitely should, and one of them is the one that I'm going to be talking about today. This film maybe surprised me the most out of all the old films I'd seen thus far. I think it still stands up there with my top ones that I've seen since, and I've seen a lot since these videos are slow compared to the amount that I'm watching, okay? I will try and be disciplined, and I will get through my stats, and then I will give my opinion, and there are so many fun facts about this film. I've been waiting to talk about this for a long time. Gaslight, it came out May 4th, 1944. It is rated PG, which I think for a psychological thriller is pretty decent that they didn't have to do anything unnecessary to convey the story. It is an hour and 54 minutes long, so it's a relatively long film. It's in black and white. It got 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is fair. Got a 7.8 on IMDb. I think both of those are fair ratings. This film stars Ingrid Bergman. Yes, I'm still going through her films. You're just gonna have to put up with me. I would try and space them out between a couple of different films and a couple of her films, but one of the processes to help me get over the overwhelm finding all of these old films was I decided that I would pick an actor or an actress and I would go through those films, and then that would help me find all of these different films. And Ingrid Bergman, as I've been reading her story, I've loved watching her films. I've sort of tailored them to that, and she did a lot of good films, so I feel like I'm pretty safe going down this avenue for seeing a quality film. If you get frustrated with that, sorry, not sorry. It stars Charles Boyer, Angela Lansbury, which was her film debut, she'd never acted before, and Joseph Cotton. I'm gonna butcher this name again. The director is George Cukor. I'm gonna Google his name. Google, come here, my friend. Okay, it sounds really wrong to say, but the director is George Cukor. I think. Cukor. His name was George. The director was George. I gotta pull myself together. The awards it won, Ingrid Bergman won her first Oscar for Best Actress for this film, and it has pretty much declared throughout all of film critics that this is her best performance, and one of the best performances by a lead actress in film history. Considering the typecast that she was in prior makes a lot of sense, because she had played a lot of very nice girls, very independent girls. Like, you look at her in Casablanca, you look at her in... oh, what was that? She's known for playing very strong characters, and she was really hesitant to take this role because she didn't know if she was going to be able to pull off the meek, shy, timid sort of personality. And she's always considered it her greatest challenge as an actress and one of her greatest achievements because of the way that she was able to portray it, which is very interesting. I believe it also won Best Production Design, which makes a lot of sense because the set that they built, they filled it with as much stuff as they could so that it feels claustrophobic and that we're really immersed in her world. And as she begins to feel her mind going all of these different places, the more claustrophobic it feels, the better. So they just stuffed the set with as much as they could, but obviously still make it look like a house and a home and that people were living in it and it normal at the same time. So they did that very well. So I think that is a very deserved Oscar for Best Production Design, which I think is an element of film that often gets overlooked. The story of this film. The last video I did not talk much about the story because present me is not very kind to future editor me. So I'm going to try my best to be kinder. The story of this film, I'm going to use the term because it has since been used as a term known as verbing, I think. To gaslight someone, or gaslighting, is where you convince and manipulate someone to the point where they feel like they are the insane one. And it's a very popular term in psychology and therapy, particularly in relationship settings, I think is where it's most commonly found. And the reason it got this name is because of the gas lamps that they had. He would turn them down a little bit every day so that it was dimmer and dimmer. He claimed he didn't notice a thing, but she was like, definitely getting dimmer. I can't be the crazy one. Look, it's so dark in here. And that was one of the first ways that he fine-tuned his manipulating of her. It was so clever to see, and it ground my gears so much. You're watching him set up these stumbling blocks for her, which she then falls into because she's naive and trusting and gullible, and she likes him. He just plays her so well. It was horrible. Oh, that brooch. He does all of these things so cleverly, and then he treats her with such empathy afterwards, and he's so gracious towards her, and he's so kind. She lost his family heirloom, but that's okay. You're just highly strung and tired. Go sleep and rest. He's trying to get part of her wealth because her aunt was very wealthy. I don't want to spoil the story. I feel like the guy in Ratatouille trying to explain the tiny chef living under his hat. It's like, I want to talk to you, but I don't want to spoil everything.
Yeah, why is it so hard to talk to you?
Which is really hard to get the balance of convincing you to watch the film by giving you enough teasers, but without spoiling everything so that you don't actually necessarily need to watch it because I told you everything. So basically, he needs to get something from her without her knowing about it, so he's been planning this for many, many, many years. The story is so fascinating the way that it unravels. I absolutely loved it, and I think this is a film that everybody needs to watch before entering a relationship of any kind. Romantically, family relationship you're already in, so you might as well just watch the film regardless. Work relationships, because this gaslighting is so toxic and dangerous and it messes with you so easily, you've got to understand how it works. So rather than poring over some potentially boring psychology book, watch a film, watch this film, and let it give you the tools on how to spot the patterns of this behavior and notice the ways that someone would try to gaslight you, and see if you can find the stumbling blocks that they're going to put for you before you end up falling into them. This film delivers it so well, and the tension that they built and everything, it's so, so good. I highly recommend watching this one. I did force my family to watch this one. I thought this is such an important film. I made them watch it, and they liked it. Yay! As I mentioned, it's in black and white. The film being in black and white didn't hinder it at all. If anything, it amplified the way that they told the story. They used shadows to visually tell you where the characters were, whether they were stepping out into the light, whether they were receding into the shadow, sort of in a way who to trust and who not to trust. But as shadows move, it's sort of intermingling between all of the characters. You don't really know who's at what point, but it was so cleverly visually told. I loved it because there's, I think it's on the staircase, someone's walking up and someone's walking down, and their shadow was like looming over them as they're coming down, and it was so good. I loved it. And then there's another scene where they're standing in a doorway and they enter the room, but the light from the room is projecting the shadow onto the door, and for the majority of the conversation we're watching their shadow. I really liked that. It simultaneously breaks you from the cycle of, oh, I'm just watching a film, and draws you in at the same time. So it wakes you up and draws you in, which I loved. I absolutely loved it. And the pacing of old films is so different to the films that we have now. We have a few slow burn films, but most of them it's like constantly changing and everything's moving all of the time. But with these films, they understood the power in stillness, and I loved this one because the story is intelligent, the characters are portrayed in such an enthralling way. I love it, but then I don't want to get blindsided by how much I loved it. I think maybe it was a little bit slow, but I think that is attributed to the fact that it was adapted from a play which was written by Patrick Hamilton in 1938. This play was by the same name, Gaslight, and this was actually the second film made of it. The first film made of it was in 1940, so 4 years prior. After the release of this film, they wanted to get all of the material for that film completely destroyed, and they didn't want anyone to be able to see it, which is a very bizarre thing to do, but I suppose they had a bigger budget, they wanted a bigger film, they wanted it to last in time. My personal score, I would give this film a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it, from the way that it was made as a film, from the intellect of the story, the performance of the actors, the way that it was filmed and lit. Everything just came together so well to deliver this film. I don't have many notes on it. I just really, really liked it. I hope if you choose to watch it that you like it too, because it's definitely stayed with me, and I think will stay with me. I hope that you're able to have that experience with it too. The genre is a thriller mystery. I think that's the perfect genre to put this in. It definitely has the thrill and it definitely has the mystery. Maybe less thrill than you'd expect from a thriller, because of the way they deliver it. Is way more psychological than, I suppose, physical endangerment. It's definitely more mind game than it is there's a gun to your head kind of thing. I think we can get to the fun facts now. Yay! One of my favorite fun facts I think about this. Oh, they're all fun. Never mind, no favorites. The director asked Ingrid Bergman to study patients in mental institutes so that she could better understand what it's like for someone to have a nervous breakdown, their behavior patterns afterwards, and what it's like in their mind, so she can see an example so that she can better portray it, because he wanted the film to be realistic. It's such an interesting method. I know Leonardo DiCaprio, in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, he went to a home that housed autistic boys. He wrote down like a list of 100 different mannerisms that he picked up, like this one, and like different finger stimming things that he noticed. Leonardo DiCaprio's performance in that was outstanding, and definitely the mannerisms paid off. So knowing that Ingrid Bergman did that, especially since she hadn't played a character like this at all and she was quite nervous about it, I think definitely went a long way into honing in her performance to be the Oscar winner that it became. I think there was one patient in particular that she based a lot of her mannerisms off, so she could tailor it to one person rather than like a combination of all of them, which is very, very interesting. I can't imagine what kind of experience that would have been, going to one of those institutes, especially in that time. This one's funny. The very first scene Ingrid Bergman and Charles Boyer filmed together is when they're meeting at the train station and she rushes to him and they kiss and embrace. But because she's tall, there's complications. He had to stand on a box, and every time she ran to him, she'd end up kicking him off the box and he'd fall over. So they had to keep telling her, just like a little bit further back, but then you've also got to get into frame. I can imagine that would have been quite a fun, frustrating day on set. It's just so funny the things they did to keep height as a big factor in film. And it gets funnier because Angela Lansbury, she's playing the servant, and they kind of want her to be dominating in a way towards Ingrid Bergman's character Paula. The way that they did that is through height. They wanted her to be similar height to her, which also made Charles Boyer need to be taller. He wore shoes that had 2-inch heels that he could be taller than her. So any scene that they were in, all three of them, I think most of the time Ingrid is sitting, which is a classic trick she used to do to make herself small. So it's like everyone else in the crew must have felt like midgets as this tall actress in flat shoes is walking past this male actor in 2-inch high heels and this 17-year-old girl in also high heels, and they're all standing on boxes which they got to move across the set. It's so funny to me. I hope I can find pictures of that. I love finding the behind the scenes pictures. It's so fun, but I really hope I can find it because it's not always easy. I have to dig for a long time. Charles Boyer's wife, Pat Patterson, she was expecting their first and only child, and he was so anxious and anticipating the delivery of this baby because it was colliding with the schedule, and he'd often rush through takes so that he had a long enough break that he could call her and check how things are going, if she's okay, if he needed to come, which compared to his performance in the film, which is such slow burn, very, I guess, hypnotic, deadpan, very calm, slow, there's no rushing in his character at all. He himself was rushing, like, I just gotta get through the scene and then I gotta call her. And when he was filming, he got a call and she'd had the baby and they'd had a baby boy, and he was so happy he burst into tears, and they stopped production for a few hours and they brought out champagne and they all celebrated the birth of the baby, which is such a lovely moment. It's sad in a way that he didn't get there, but it's also nice that he was able to celebrate with everyone that he was working with at the time. Ingrid Bergman loved working with him. She said that he was one of the most intelligent actors that she'd ever worked with, and the way that he approached things, she said he was a very well-read person and very intellectual. It's always nice when you can find a scene partner and an actor that you can connect with on an emotional level, a work level, and an intellectual level, and challenge each other, which I think they greatly appreciated because they were both very smart people. The director devised this method that he wanted to apply to this film specifically because they were filming so out of sequence. He wanted the change that the characters go through to be incredibly consistent because Ingrid's transformation from the beginning of the film to the end of the film and the middle of the film is so drastic but so smoothly executed in the film. So his method worked, but his method was to sit down with them before every scene that they did and tell the entire backstory of the film up until that point where the scene was. Ingrid was quite frustrated with to begin with. She was like, I'm not some dumb Swede. You don't have to tell me the entire backstory. I did the work. I'm an actor. I know what I'm doing. And he's like, okay. So he backed off for a little bit, and then the producers came to him and said, the performance has been slacking just a little bit and the change isn't as consistent, so we might need to adjust that. So he's like, okay. So he went back and he's like, I think it was working. And then she began to really appreciate that method and she quite liked working that way. That method definitely worked incredibly well because the change that both characters go through is so subtly executed across the entire time that it was filmed and the entire timeline of the film that it's seamless and it's beautiful, and it really makes the film, it convinces you the characters and the way that they're living and everything. And to get Ingrid's character from the beginning of the film, the middle of the film, to the very end of that film and that monologue she does, that was amazing. When this film was finished filming, Ingrid Bergman's very next film was The Bells of St. Mary's, and she was working with Bing Crosby, and I forget the other guy's name, editor me will help me out, but they both had Oscars, and she was about to go film this film, and when she went to the Oscars and she does her acceptance speech, she said, so relieved I actually got this because I was afraid I'd turn up to set and neither of them would talk to me because they both have Oscars and I don't. That is basically my thoughts on this film. I thought it was an incredible film. I love it so much. My family liked it, so yay, and I really hope that you guys like it too. I think it is such an important film for everyone to see, and especially the term gaslighting is so commonly used now. I think it's very important to understand the origin of the word, and you could spend years studying gaslighting and its technicalities, but I think the best way to is to go to the source where it got its name and why it is applied in our modern psychology now. So Gaslight, the film, I recommend go watching that a lot. I don't know how to end, so I will compile another film. Maybe it will be another Ingrid Bergman, maybe it won't. I think the dog's barking, sorry. So goodbye.